I remember to unmute myself this time. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the FGB Fantasy Golf Bag live stream for the WGC Mexico Championship. I am Red Kachik, joined as always by Jacob Ray, JK Ray ASU. And we're here to talk some ownership. We got a special guest a little bit later we'll get to. But again, small field, a few field changes. I'll go ahead and bring in Jacob. How's it going, man?
It's good. I'm looking at these calf pictures. You've dropped some fill pictures on us. I don't know what to make of that.
I was trying to figure out a way to just cycle through different angles of the calves, but this is all I could do. You could even tell the crop job was pretty bad.
Yeah.
It didn't work, Buddha.
Oh man.
I don't know what happened, man. Oh well. Thanks for the $5 there, Mike. Yeah, Jacob. Let's not get sidetracked by Phil's calves. I know it's very difficult to do, but yeah, man, we got later this evening on this show. We'll be joined by Andrew Rutherford. He's the CEO and the co-founder of FanShare Sports. He's going to talk us through the FanShare Pro, talk through some ownership, some different tools that he finds valuable, especially in a smaller field with no cut. I talked to him a bit earlier, and he really had an emphasis on the ownership, which we'll definitely get to, but I definitely agree. Thanks, Jedlow, on the haircut. Compliment, or just a statement, not even a compliment, but it was getting bad. So yeah, we'll get into all that. Let's go ahead and hop into the agenda real quick. We'll just go through that. I see a lot of familiar names, but it never hurts to just refresh a bit. What are you laughing about?
You're getting a lot of love in chat already.
I am. High fade, yeah. Oh, that's you, man.
No, yeah, your sweatshirt. Anything's better than your sweatshirt from last week is what they're saying.
Oh, appreciate it, guys. You know, I do what I can to support this stream and support you guys. So, all right. As always, we'll be going through the podcast review. Hopefully you guys had a chance to listen to that. I know it went a little bit longer than our typical 1 hour show, but with Ben Coley on, we had a threesome for the podcast, and definitely took a little bit longer to get through the guys. But tremendously thankful for Ben to come on the show and talk through some of the Europeans and his thoughts. Super sharp. He was, naming off stuff from, 2004, 2005 British Open and stuff. So pretty crazy. So we'll go through that. FGB line movement. There's a couple guys I've actually kind of come off on and gone on to in the lower range. And a lot of that has to do with ownership, which we'll also get to. Weather is mostly uneventful. And thanks, Orange Man. It was a podcast threesome. It's less personable. Thanks to Chris Varther on the podcast. Thanks, man. Thanks for listening. And yeah, so we'll talk about the weather. Not a lot to talk about. Which is a nice change of events from the last 2 weeks. And then obviously the ownership. Jacob will drop off for a short while as Andrew comes on and gives us a little test drive down the FanShare Pro line of things. And of course we have giveaways. Actually got some new shirts in thanks to Chris Ferder. I see him in the chat. Some new colorways for the FGB shirts and the logo. So excited for that. So I'll go ahead and kick things off. This image with Phil is going to loop. I thought I only set it to go once, but guys in chat can enjoy this for a little while longer, unfortunately. So, yeah, Jacob, let's go ahead and just talk a little bit about the podcast. Obviously, we talked about a lot of things, a lot of Europeans, and I know in our chat we discussed some 50-50s as far as Americans and Europeans. I don't think it's that cut and dry, but I definitely am putting extra emphasis on the Europeans, especially in the lower range. The biggest takeaway I have, and I don't know your opinion on it, but Nick was Ben, I'm watching Nick Veronin just trying to see what he can share with us in chat. But Ben on the podcast, he was very high on the value that we had from Aaron Wise. I can't have a guest as highly renowned as Ben Coley come on and tell us about playing Aaron Wise and not play him. So I'm definitely going to be playing some Aaron Wise this week. Do you have any thoughts on that? I think just price-wise, his upside's there. He's going to get guaranteed 4 rounds, assuming he doesn't have any Montezuma's revenge. Doesn't darken the white pants. And I don't see a ton of risk in Aaron Wise. Even with his recent missed cuts, they weren't by many shots. So what do you think about Aaron Wise? And then I'll try to get to some of the other guys I've kind of changed my tune on.
No, I like Aaron Wise. He was one of the guys that I think I mentioned him in the round robin before Ben did, but he was just one guy like Ben had sort of echoed that just pops out. It doesn't really fit down in this range. Majority of the guys down there are European, so it's not really apples to apples, but just sheer talent alone. I mean, certainly his form hasn't been great, but we're talking about a PGA Tour winner, really, really talented guy. And I think what you were saying, the fact that we've got 4 guaranteed rounds, it's kind of a no-brainer, especially if you're down there looking around for, for somebody to fill out the end of the lineup. I see I'm shrinking up there.
Yeah, you've gone away. We'll have to put Phil in the box.
Well,
it's all right. Keep talking. I think your internet's a little slow. I can see it's a little bit buffering on my side, but people can hear you, I think. So keep going.
Yeah. So definitely like Aaron Wise, but he's probably the only American down there really that I have any interest in. Everybody else in the 6K that I've got interest that is filling out, or it really is on my list that I'm sort of deciding between to fill out this lineup is mostly European guys, like Beauregard, Aaron Rye, Danny Willett. I know Willett's been getting a lot of chatter about him. I know Pat Mayo is really, really high on him, but Russell Knox was a guy that I mentioned on the podcast.
Pat was going to wait until the Honda.
Go ahead.
Pat was going to wait until the Honda to play Willett, but apparently not.
With Willett?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I mean, he's not going to. I'm just saying, 2 weeks ago when I was on the show, he said he was going to wait. But
okay. Yeah, no, I feel like he's been all over him. But a lot of people have been mentioning Willett as a good option, good iron player. I don't mind Willett. I was on him when he won the Masters, had him in my lineup that year. But, I'd like to see a little bit more form from him. I like some other guys like Knox, who's coming in with good form. Two good finishes lately. I think he had a 14th and let's see, what do we got here? 14th and a 10th his last 2 events out. So really like Knox as a good play down there. And then there's one other guy that I was looking at. Abraham Answer. Yeah, I like Beauregard. I do as well. But Abraham Answer is a guy that really, if you want to play that, country narrative, this is his home country where he's from. And he did play the event last year. He didn't finish that well, but maybe that was getting the rust off.
Mike said bring back Jacob with a $5 tip. It did work, Mike.
Oh, sweet. That's all it takes. You got to pay the man, and you give the people what they want, Drew. You got to give the people what they want.
Yeah, Answer's interesting. I'm not too certain. I see Boone Cree in chat says yes on Answer.
Everybody's worried about the Tiger effect. I don't know. I mean, the Tiger effect is, I think, a thing for certain people, but I don't know. I don't know if Answer's played with him yet or not. I think Answer's going to have a home crowd with him, and this is not his first time out at the event, so. I don't mind the Answer play. I certainly, if it came down to it, I would play Knox or Beauregard over him. But certainly, if you're doing multiple lineups, then Answer I think is a fine option.
Yeah, on the very low end, and then we'll hop up to mid range and high end. I think Aaron Wise is fine. 6,400. Like I said, I'd feel really bad if Aaron Wise just finishes top 10 and wins someone 50K or something like that, and I don't play him, especially with Ben tipping him. The other ones down there, obviously Danny Willett, 6,600. I really don't mind on this golf course. I feel like he's straight enough. It should be fine. But the ones I'm targeting the most, Aaron Rye, 6,500. I mentioned him on the podcast, and Ben had a really interesting point. He kind of matched the profile of Sharma from last year. So I'll definitely be trying to hit a couple of those guys at the low end. I'm not going to be playing Van Rooyen. I think I mentioned him in Bear Off on Twitter was like, yeah, he probably hasn't broken 75 in like 2 months. I look back at his recent form. Yeah, it hasn't been very good. So Van Ruyen is out for me, EVR. And then at the low end, Alexander Bjork, I might, just because he's 6,100, I can maybe fit in like 2 studs and then like some mid 7K guys with him, just with the price savings. I could mix him in with Beauregard actually, and actually get a lot of savings there. So trying to be kind of creative, I guess, with the lineup builds. I don't know how you are picturing yourself playing some of these, but I know leaving salary on the table is one thing I'm definitely going to try to do. I think you can actually build, guys that finish inside the top 15 with saving like $1,000, $1,200 on the table. So I'm going to try to do that just to differentiate a little bit and still build pretty good lineups. And then going up to the high end, 2 of the names that kind of stuck out to me on the podcast that I went back and looked into. One is Tiger. I'm not really sure about Tiger at 9,500. I'm only going to build 3 main lineups this week, and he's not going to make the cut for those 3. I'm going to go above him to JT, Rory, and I think it's either Bryson or Rahm. I haven't decided on my 3rd lineup yet. But Tiger, I'm not too concerned with the fatigue. I mentioned that on Monday's podcast, but I feel like the way these holes are shaped, he could struggle a little bit, and if he has a tough time making some putts, like the POA, he can't really get saved on the POA. So I just feel like he could be behind the 8 ball, and I just would rather, even with 4 rounds, 9,500 is still a decent price, an expensive enough price for me to avoid in that situation. So, yeah, Rahm, CR Golfer, Rahm is solid. We'll have to look at what his ownership's at. I really like JT a ton. Not too interested in DJ. And then coming back down the list, obviously Xander. I'm just gonna go with it, man. Everyone likes Xander apparently, but this is the first week, or like maybe the second week this year, I really like Xander, so I can't let that slip.
Yeah, I've got a feeling though that Rahm is going to be very, very highly owned. Maybe one of the highest owned.
Who, Rahm?
And yeah, Rahm.
Yeah, absolutely. You're coming back slightly.
And
you're doing good work.
And it sounds like that. The most common build will be either Rahm or JT. Perhaps Bryson, although I think he's being a little less hyped up. And then a guy in the 9 range, perhaps Xander. And then that automatically sort of forces you down into the 7s unless you put an Aaron Wise in your lineup.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I think there's plenty of flexibility.
Yeah. If you're okay playing somebody down the 6Ks, I mean, certainly this is a feared field where it's easier to stomach that.
Yeah.
But there's still people that in their head, clicking the name of a 6K guy is a little tough sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I think you just got to get over that in the smaller fields. Like, I'm spending the most of my time this week in the 6K range figuring out where I want to go.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have to build players around that in your lineups, but I think all the ones above, 8K basically have seen their fair share of rounds on the PGA Tour, so there's enough data. But the ones in the 6K range is where you can certainly gain an edge if you make the right choices. And if you're just plugging in a 6K guy because you heard of, I'll use Kyle Stanley just because he's been playing bad. Kyle Stanley, some general public DFS player says, yep, Kyle Stanley, 6,400, plug him in. Because I don't know who Sang Young Park is. So, yeah, I'm spending a lot of my time in the 6K range trying to figure out which way to go. So, yeah, in the mid-range, the one that's most interesting to me, and then I'll kind of let you fill in. I think you had one guy you're fairly high on after last week. And you guys can tune in next week if you really want. This may not work out, but Jordan Spieth. I'm playing Jordan Spieth this week in one of my main lineups.
Oh, man. One of your mains, huh?
Yeah. 8,800. I'm going to give him a shot. I saw his ownership, I think, at 6% earlier. We'll look at it when Andrew comes on. Mm-hmm. But yeah, man, I don't think he's that far off. In the 81, I just feel like there's, like in my article this week, I wrote he's basically like a perfect storm. He's having 2 good rounds or like 1.5 good rounds Thursday, Friday. The weekend gets him and he just collapses. People are going to see the 81 from last week. Everyone's talking poorly of Jordan Spieth. And granted, he hasn't been playing good. I mean, he had a couple good rounds, so I don't disagree that like an 81 for a PGA Tour player and all the putts he's missed is bad. I 100% agree. But a Jordan Spieth caliber guy, 8,800 in a limited field, 4 rounds guaranteed, sub 8% ownership. I'm going to take a couple swings on Jordan Spieth. So call me
What's
crazy.
his price?
I don't really care. 8,800.
8,800.
I mean, he's right there with Hideki and Tony Finau, guys that probably will get more ownership. He's not that much cheaper than Xander, but I think it's a perfect storm. So I'm just going to try to hit it before he gets – because like I said, I told someone earlier, man, when he gets to – someone said something about the grellers that caught my eye. Yeah, his dad's caddying. Maybe that's a good thing. I don't actually know because his dad I don't even think caddied for him in junior golf events, which is – kind of strange to be honest, but so Spieth at the Masters, he's going to be maybe $800 more expensive than he is this week. It'll be about the same size field, and he'll be 20% owned. I guarantee it. 20% owned at the Masters because of his course history. So I'm going to go ahead and take a swing on him here, and hopefully he can click with 4 good rounds. That'll be one of my leverage plays, I guess, this week. It's hard to avoid the chalk, so I'm going to try to differentiate a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
You stopped coming back all the way, by the way.
I know. I saw it. It's
just hanging there.
hanging there.
So before we get into the weather and the ownerships, do you have anyone else in like the mid or low range that you may have switched on? I think it's pretty straightforward week. I mean, all these guys are world-class players. It's hard to like it's hard to like miss somebody. But it's also hard to get to everybody because they all look good. Like, we didn't talk about Molinari on Monday, and he's one that could burn you, but I'm not going to play him, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, no, actually, it's funny you say that because Molinari was one guy that I was digging into a little bit. His last finishes here were 25th, I believe, and let me pull it up real quick. 20 and a 25th, so, he's got some decent course history here, but he hasn't played in 2 months. And I think, we were having a conversation earlier in Slack about Koepka, and that was sort of the same thing there. He hasn't played in quite some time. Koepka's got worse course history. He didn't do all that well last year here. And both of those guys are sort of in the same vein for me. They're guys that you can use to leverage against the chalk. They're guys that we know that, the type of player they are, the caliber of player they are. It's just a matter of, do you think that they can, drop a top 10 compared to any one of these other guys in their range after coming in with some significant time off. So certainly, I think in single entries, it would be prudent to go a little bit safer. But, if you're doing multiple lineups, I still think they're good plays just because of ability.
Well, I mean, I'll give you a dilemma to some degree. Brooks Koepka, obviously hasn't played in a few weeks. I think his last event was the Saudi International that who won that? DJ won that, I think. So we haven't seen him since then. Obviously traveled overseas, came back. Phil Mickelson is at 9,300, and he's at the same ownership level. Mickelson has good course history. He played really well the last couple weeks.
Yeah,
Brooks hasn't played. Brooks' one showing here wasn't great. I think it was like 40-something, 48th.
49th, 48th.
48th, and then he withdrew last year, obviously, with a hand injury. But, I mean, like in those two right there, I would lean Phil just because he's been playing. And I don't disagree that, I mean, Phil's pretty talented. I think we all know that. But Brooks is a flashier player. He's a younger player. Everyone likes him.
Yeah.
But I would still lean Phil in there, personally.
Yeah.
So
that's definitely a cash mindset there, and I would even do well to, especially with these single entries and 3 maxes, is to.
It's the same projected ownership.
Yeah.
So I mean, like you could swing it both ways. You could say cash or GDP. I'm just saying from a He's been playing, obviously playing well. He's played well here in the past. Phil Mickelson checks those boxes, and he's got the same projected ownership. I would probably take that.
Yeah.
And he's $500 cheaper. So just one of those dilemmas. I'm not saying it's wrong to take Brooks. I'm just saying in my eyes, he's the same exact projected ownership. Just take Phil. He's been playing. Yeah. He's playing good. Just ride it.
Yeah, and he won last year, so.
Exactly. So, I mean, he's played well at this event.
Yeah.
Finished 7th the year before. So, yeah, let's go ahead and jump to the weather. You're slowly getting bigger. Maybe we need Mike to give us one more donation. I'm just kidding. Let's hop over to the weather real fast.
Don't joke. He'll do it. He'll put some odd number in there.
Well, I'm half joking with him to try to like peer pressure him into thinking I'm joking, but I'm not.
Okay.
Donate, Mike.
He's serious. Go.
Mike, donate. All right. So looking at the weather here, really not a lot to talk about. So the last couple of weeks we had some hail, we had a lot of rain, we had a restart on Thursday. I know everyone was a fan of. This week looks practically perfect outside of the altitude that yeah, donate $69 there, Mike. Yeah, outside of the altitude, I mean, this place is going to play extremely nice. You got mid 60s to mid 70s throughout the day. Thursday, same deal on Friday. So you can see on your screen there. I don't know if anyone can hear that, but I know I can.
What's that?
When he donates, it says it out loud, whatever his quote is. So it may not have said anything. It said make Jacob big. But yeah, so not a lot to talk about as far as the weather. You got 5 to 6 miles per hour wind on Thursday and less than that Friday. I'm not going to get into Saturdays because it doesn't really matter, just more or less the if you guys wanted to target tee time splits, but there's just nothing there. I mean, guys are going to tee off within an hour and a half, I think, or 2 hours tomorrow.
Yeah, it's a
around
2 hour
noon.
span.
2 hour span, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's nothing. There's really nothing on the yeah, Montezuma's Revenge could be an issue there, Orange Man. Buddha, you can't hear it?
Yeah, I tweeted earlier that the theme song of the week is a "Don't Drink the Water" by Dave Matthews. It's yeah, we don't want to have a Terrell Hatton situation with white pants, so or Stinson withdraw after starting birdie last year.
I know. Let's not do any weird jinxes. All right, so let's talk a little bit about. Man, we're running good on time, 9:23. If y'all have any questions, go ahead and drop them in. I'll try to get Andrew in here right at 9:30, and we can talk through some ownerships. And depending on how long that takes, I'll bring Jacob back, and we'll finish out the show. You have anything else on? Let's see here. The only thing I
got a couple other players.
Yeah, go ahead and hit it. I'm thinking about pulling up the betting card. So go ahead and hit that, and then I'll pull up the betting card in just a second.
Yeah, so JRB actually just posted a head-to-head there, Casey versus Kentley. Casey is a guy that I feel really strongly about, and honestly, I think he might go a little under the radar. I could be wrong on that. I mean, he's got really good form coming in. He's got really good course history. I don't know why he would go under the radar, but I think the way that the majority of the builds can go, ends up having you skip this mid to low, actually the mid to high 8K range, because you try and get somebody in the 10s, and you want somebody in the 9s, and then you're not really in a position to, pick another higher or mid 8K guy. So I think Casey, who else we got over there? Spieth, obviously, he's like projected 5%. Mark Leishman is another guy that I'm really, really big on. I mentioned him on the podcast. Really like his form coming in. Outside of a 43rd that he had at the Farmers, he's got a 4th, a 3rd, and a 4th are his recent events. Putting really well on POA. I just think that this is an event where, he can beat 10% and, finish top 3 or something like that.
Yeah. Orange Man asked in the chat, or someone did, do they need to have the winner in their lineup to take down a GPP? And yes, the answer is yes. You probably need like 6 of the top 15 to take down a GPP, to be honest.
Yeah.
So there's two sides of the coin there. One is you could play lighter than you normally do because you have a good chance of hitting the nuts, but so does everybody else. And if you're playing in a big GPP and you're off one guy, that could, that basically cost you from cashing when in another week you'd be like, top 2% or something. So just keep that in mind. If you're playing a bunch of GPPs, obviously the variance you could definitely take advantage of, which is great. If you're only playing a handful of lineups, just don't go too crazy and start adding a bunch of lineups, and you lose a little bit of that variance in golf with such a small player field because everyone's picking everybody. I mean, there's some leverage spots, but there's really, like we talked about earlier in the high end, if you went, we'll just say JT and Dustin are two players that people are trying to figure out who to play. If you go one over the other and one finishes 30th and the other finishes second, I mean, that's a pretty bad pivot, and it's golf. It could happen, but just be careful with your bankroll a little bit on these no-cut events. I think everyone on every podcast harps it, so just be careful there.
Yeah.
Anyone else down in the lower end range? I'll go ahead and send Andrew. Yeah, go for it.
No, there was just a question I remember from earlier up top asking about what each of us thought about Noren. I like Noren a lot. I know Ben was pretty high on him. Drew, I think you said that you were as well. I don't know how popular he's going to be. One projection I saw had him pretty high up there.
For Stenson?
Noren.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I read a question and said debating fading Chalk Stenson, but price too good to pass up. I mean, you can make a case for ownership and fade anybody. I think he still has upside. I'm just checking what his ownership is real quick. Yeah, he's projected at 11.5% ownership, so I wouldn't fade that.
Stinson or Noren?
That's Stinson. I know you were asking about Noren.
Okay.
Noren at 15.5%. It's a bit rich.
Yeah.
I'd probably lean Stinson. Like Ben said, Stinson hasn't been far off.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason Noren's probably more popular is because he's played in the States, and people, like recently, people know that.
Yeah, Jedlow, 11%, I wouldn't really say is chalk for Stinson, especially not in this limited field.
I'm compensating Papa Wolf. Poa is crabgrass. Yeah. Oh, God. Crabgrass gets us into Bermuda down in Florida, too. Any love?
You know what you should do? Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was reading a question. Nick Knight 0. Any love for Sharma? He got 9th last year. Not really. He hasn't been playing that great. His history coming into that event was good with his win at I think it was the Omega European Masters, but his form isn't as good as the guys around him. So I'd rather lean the other guys. Like Ben said, I think Ben was on Rye as high as he was on Sharma from last year. So I would lean Rye down there, and he's cheaper.
Yeah, I like Rye a lot.
Let me hop over to the betting card real quick. And I'll try to tag Andrew. We'll look at ownerships. And Jacob, you can probably hang out in the chat just since we can only have 2 boxes up. And then I'll bring you in right after he's done. But let me pull up the betting card as I transition.
All right.
See if he's good. So, talking through the betting card a little bit. Again, this is kind of a weird field, so I tried to really target the longer odds in the top 5s and the top 10. What's sad, Mike? Oh man, no one else can hear this except me, but I can hear all the tip voices, but no one else can. That's sad. Very sad. Trying to focus past Mike. Jeez. Top 5s and top 10s. Try to hit some longer odd guys like Rafa Cabrera Bayo. You could certainly take to win, but 8-1 for a top 5 I think is a pretty decent number in this field with his history here and his recent form. Finished 3rd here last year. Did a little bit of damage with the putter, but still like that a lot. And then going down the list, obviously guys like looking at the top 10 list like Aaron Wise, Sharma, Rye, Sterney. man, they're like double-digit odds to finish top 10 in a 72-player field.
Yeah.
Sign me up. And then in the outright category, obviously, we take the low odds on Rory, move up to Phil at 28-1, like that a ton. And then Tommy Fleetwood, Sergio, Henrik Stenson, and Alex Noren. Beauregard, Lewis, and Ray.
Yeah, I like Lewis a lot.
Yeah, I thought Lewis would be more popular. But let's go ahead and transition to some FanShare numbers. Jacob, we'll join you here in a few minutes. Let me grab Mr. Andrew Rutherford, and we'll get this FanShare portion going, and we'll see you in the chat, and they'll see you on the live stream here in a few minutes.
Alrighty.
All right, buddy. See ya.
Yep.
All right, guys. You can still hear me, hopefully. Let's pull in Andrew. It's a weird transition, I know, so bear with me. Andrew, how's it going? Doing good. Let me make sure that your audio is coming through real quick. I'll double check. All right, guys, bear with me. Click this. All right. You guys see him in chat? Hopefully. I can see you, Andrew. I think we're good to go.
I can see myself. I don't know what that means, but I can see myself.
Yeah, it only shows video through one. Yeah, they say you're good to go. So if you're ready to rock and roll, can you see what I'm sharing at all? Or anything on Twitch?
I cannot. Do I need to click on the link or anything? Or
here, let's try this.
Oh, yeah, now I can. We're good.
Can see? Cool. All right, man. Let's. I'm gonna hop over to FanShare Sports with you.
Perfect.
Again, thank you so much for coming on, guys. Hopefully audio works. If not, just yell at me in chat. But from what I'm seeing, everything is good to go. But yeah, Andrew Rutherford, CEO, co-founder of FanShare Sports. Thank you so much for coming on and walking us through some ownership, talking some WGC Mexico.
Anytime, guys. Thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to this.
Absolutely. This would be very beneficial to me especially, but all the viewers, I definitely would think they will get a benefit.
I don't think you need any help, Drew. I think you understand ownership pretty well.
There's always ways that you could look at it a little bit different, or maybe some new tools you got. So happy to learn some new tricks.
Sounds good. We'll see what we can do.
Absolutely. So I'm here at FanShare Sports. I'm on the FanShare Pro side. So I show these guys this page every single week, and we kind of go through, pricing from high to low and look at percent ownership or projected ownership and seeing kind of where something falls off. And then we obviously go from the low end up to see where we can find some value. But, looking at this week for this event, 72 players, how should we be approaching this event using FanShare Sports for the ownership?
Yeah, I mean, I think, obviously there's some nuances to this event with the smaller field size and softer pricing, almost like major style pricing with some of the value on the board. So there is that to consider, but I think, overall, I think it's really just approaching it like we approach every other week and not sort of, leaning too much towards the chalk. Obviously, we never want to say that all chalk is bad chalk, because that's absolutely not the case, and that's not what we're all about. But having said that, looking back, even last year, I mean, I know it's a small sample size, one event. The event's been here twice, but looking at the ownership specifically for last year, the top 10 in DK points, there was only one guy over 15% owned. So I like to look at that kind of Wednesday night every week just to remind myself that, look, 9 weeks out of 10, when you actually look at that leaderboard after the fact, there's always going to be guys in those top 10, that are less than 15, less than 10, in many cases less than 5% owned. So just sort of keeping that in mind. And as you say, you can get a pretty good feel for where the ownership is headed just by looking at the FanShare Pro dashboard. There's different kind of ways I like to look for value and kind of leverage as far as, looking at class golfers, even just kind of scrolling through the official world golf rankings and kind of seeing who's just not getting a lot of buzz. I mean, a lot of times guys aren't getting buzz because they're not in great form, even if they're elite kind of top end golfers. But as we know, eventually they come around, and by the time they get the buzz, it's usually after they've had a top 10 or a top 5. So
exactly,
you want
key to be before that.
Absolutely. So this week, I mean, we got guys like Brooks, hasn't played in a while. Didn't have great form, I don't think, towards the later part of 2018. But just look at his game log from earlier in 2018, and there's a few events where he sort of popped at lower ownership, and not a guy that really gets a ton of ownership to begin with, considering he's the number 2 ranked player in the world. So
it's crazy. He doesn't get any respect, and it's become a joke, but it's very real. It's scary. It
is real. It's kind of crazy. I was looking back at his historical ownership earlier today, and I think he got up to around 18 or 19, once or twice, like all of last year. But for the most part, he was sort of hovered between kind of 8 and 15%,
right?
Which is kind of nuts. So yeah. Otherwise, I mean, another thing I like to do on the main dashboard there, which I'm not sure if a lot of people know, even what these columns mean or why they're valuable, but I like to look at the 24-hour plus minus tag rank, which basically is measuring the movement in sort of tags / mentions of a particular golfer over the last 24 hours. So if you see somebody kind of climbing up the ranks later in the week, i.e. Wednesday, sometimes that tends to carry over, that momentum tends to carry over into kind of actual, ownership post-lock. So the guy that sort of jumped out at me earlier was Tyrrell Hatton. I mean, I know he was always going to get some buzz just based on the course history, but
take a peek.
Not a guy who's been heavily owned recently, but he's climbing up there. And one other thing I like to do with the LT plus minus, that stands for last tournament, plus minus. And what that's all about is it's really there to kind of identify recency bias trends. So we're measuring, from week to week or from tournament to tournament, the kind of the increase or decrease in the buzz right around the golfer. So I like to actually sort it by minus.
Okay.
Kind of see who's jumping out. And this week, I mean, if I do that, there's a few guys, but Pat Reed, he's got to be high up there in your favorite golfers, I'm assuming, Drew.
He's up there. He's not the highest this week, but I mean, he won someone a lot of money last year.
Yeah, exactly. So he's a guy, right? Like just zero buzz this week.
So let me ask you this: as far as like the projected ownership side and the last tournament plus minus on tags, or even like the 24-hour plus minus on tags, do those almost correlate, or do they tell different stories? Like how would you maybe use them conjunctly versus just looking at projected ownership? Does the tags tell you a slightly different story or maybe a better story?
Yeah, I think they can tell a pretty interesting story because, a lot of times in any given week, there's a strong argument to play somebody and, everybody jumps on the guy and he gets high ownership. Well, first he gets a lot of buzz. He gets, mentioned in all the podcasts and becomes kind of, the guy and everyone piles into him. And then, that's not to say they shouldn't have. I mean, if the stats are lining up and the course fit is there and the price is right, I mean, okay, it's natural. People are going to gravitate towards a guy, and then, it doesn't work out for that week, but that's DFS golf, right? I mean, There's a lot of variance. That doesn't mean you shouldn't go back to him the following week, but I think that's just one of those kind of inherent tendencies of DFS, right? It's recency bias, and we saw it last week with DJ. Saw a big drop off in ownership. Now, maybe rightfully so, because I don't think he really hit value last week. But I like to kind of go back to the well, so to speak, some weeks, because you see it. Sometimes you just miss a guy by a week, I think.
Oh yeah, you're almost better off playing him the week after, just because, like, if you were on him the week before, nothing much has changed the next week. There's a good chance he has a bounce back and he'll be lower owned, in addition to that. So I wish we all had unlimited bankrolls, but I think almost playing the same lineup from the week prior and playing it again the next week could do wonders.
Well, it's not a bad strategy, to be honest. Louis, personally, I'm not playing Louis this week, but he's a guy who will see a big dip. I mean, it'll be slightly relative because of the difference in the field. But, I mean, last week, he actually surprised me last week. I think he hit 16% ownership. He wasn't getting a ton of hype, but I think just people obviously saw the value in his price point last week.
Right.
And he was carrying good form, obviously, coming from Europe. But he's a guy this week. I mean, you can see on the dashboard, fairly mixed sentiment, only 2 real sort of positive mentions on the week. So, he won't be in bad form forever. We know that. And as we get closer to Augusta, that's usually when he tends to round into form. So, again, it's just kind of an interesting data point, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I'm trying to do my best to get more, not so much quantifiable, because I don't think there's always cut and dry projected ownerships. I know we've talked on this show before, like, a projected ownership over 20-something% for a Dustin Johnson isn't nearly the same as a $6,900 Joel Damon. That's 22%.
No, I totally agree. Yeah.
So, yeah, I think there's definitely, I'm trying to do more with, like, figuring out, all right, this guy mathematically should be excluded from your player pool. And I haven't quite figured that out to a science, but I definitely have found an advantage looking at projected ownerships each week, because there's been, like last week, Sung Kang was a guy that I really thought would be super popular off of the Pebble Beach play. And he was projected at like 6.5%, and he came in at like 5.5%, and I just couldn't believe it. I was like, this is off 10%, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
I mean, that, by utilizing that would have gave you huge leverage, and obviously didn't play as well over the weekend, but he certainly started off on fire and was looking pretty good. But those are really good advantages if you can take advantage of the projected ownership. It definitely can lead to some successful weeks. Even when you're not on the perfect players, just that leverage.
Yeah, sometimes it's just about more about not being on the one guy, and like you say, big difference between kind of an elite level golfer at 20% and a Joel Dahman or I can't think of another guy, but every week there's someone in that kind of 7,500 and less range. Yeah. Who's going to pop, and usually, usually it doesn't work out, to be honest.
It's weird how that happens. It almost always doesn't work out.
That's right.
In horrible fashion.
That's right. Look, the data is the data. We have our ownership projections. The model is good. It's not perfect. Every week there's going to be a couple of misses, and I think there's kind of 2 reasons for that. One is, I think at this point in PGA DFS, most people who play are consuming some form of ownership projection, which in itself is going to influence decision making and the ultimate actual ownership. So, that's kind of a no-win situation.
Absolutely.
The other is, everybody likes everyone until you sit down to build lineups and you're like, oh, guess I can't, fit all these guys in, and that is going to cause a certain kind of pull towards a salary range or a certain guy within that range. So, I think the projections are there for a guide, to serve as a guide, like any projection. And, we like to think that we're not going to completely miss on sort of the key guys very often.
Absolutely. Are there any that are sticking out to you this week? We won't have to keep you too much longer. I know you're busy keeping all this stuff up to date. It's pretty crazy, all the tags and stuff, keeping that up to date. But anything that stands out to you this week as far as the field and ownership during your research this week?
So there's a couple guys. One guy I'm interested in, and I'm kind of, curious. I can't really believe exactly, that he's going to be this low owned. But Mark Leishman, I mean, he's only T27 in mentions. He's, he'll get some ownership, obviously, but given his form, played well last week at Riviera, which is, being touted as the most comparable course to what we're seeing this week. So, he's a guy that doesn't tend to get touted a lot. He's just a solid play, almost like a CH3 or a Finau, where we know he'll get some ownership. But I was expecting him. What are your thoughts on Leishman this week, Drew?
Yeah, I'm not going to play him this week. There's guys around him. So like early on in the show, I mentioned I wouldn't say not high hopes, but Spieth is going to be lower owned than he should be. And I'm going to take that. He's at 8,800, so $100 more. Leishman's definitely playing better. So I can't fault anyone for going to Leishman there. But I think this is a perfect storm. So not to repeat myself too much, but like Spieth has he's started to kind of turn the corner, and then his weekends have been so bad, and has dropped his price obviously to 8,800. His ownership I saw is 6.5% or 6.3%. And I can just see him in 2 months when he's at Augusta, he's going to be in the mid nines, and he's going to be 20-something% owned. So I'm going to take a shot on Spieth this week over Leishman, and that's just strictly a game theory play. It's kind of funny you mentioned Leishman though, because I'm looking through the dashboard here on FanShare Pro, and his tags are down, but his ownership is up. And like you said, he doesn't get touted a lot. He just garners ownership from his recent form, basically. So that's really interesting to see the difference there.
Yeah, exactly. And that is another factor that plays into, I think, most people's projected ownership models is there's an element of historical ownership, right? Guys that make a lot of cuts, obviously the CH3s, they always seem to soak up ownership, but they don't make for kind of the sexy, tout play, so to speak. But yeah, I mean, look, it's an interesting week. I think there's a lot of opportunities to differentiate with really elite guys. I think your JTs, your Roms. I mean, I'm still playing both of those guys. They're going to have ownership. Sure. Tiger could be interesting. I've heard some talk that he's going to be really highly owned, but I'm not seeing it in the data. I mean, Paul Casey, he could be interesting. I mean, with the elevation, he plays well on shorter courses, obviously. So if people are overlooking the fact that it's actually playing more like a 7,000 yard course, he could be an interesting pivot.
It's interesting, because the pivots can, especially in this type of field, can really, at the end of the week, you could look back and just be kicking yourself. It doesn't take much, but like one guy finishes 15 places different, and you're like, man, I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes from Thursday through Sunday.
Absolutely. No. One thing I'm trying to get better at is I just have these guys that I just can't bring myself to play them, and it's almost like I have to just force myself to do the opposite of what I would normally do, just to get over that bias.
it's like stock trading. It's like if it goes up for 10%, then I'll finally buy some, but it's already gone up 10%.
That's it.
It's not a good
That's
timing.
No, exactly. So yeah, no, I mean, Ian Poulter, he's another guy that's kind of standing out. He's getting a little bit of buzz, but obviously he's been pretty hot, for a while now.
Yes. Yeah, I like Poulter quite a bit this week. And he's at 11% right now. I could see him coming there a little under that, actually. But, yeah, he's an interesting one. He's been playing solid for a whole year, really.
Yeah, and he's like he's been flying all over the world, apparently, and doesn't suffer from jet lag.
I know. Must be nice. I mean, you get the freaking jet companies that this on call. Hey, I'm ready to go to Saudi Arabia. Hey, I'm ready to go back to Orlando.
That must be it. Yeah.
That must be it. But Andrew, any other closing thoughts? If not, man, I really appreciate you coming on. I'll bring Jacob back on here to finish up the last bit of the show. But any closing remarks or anything to say about FanShare? I know you got some things in the works, but we really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, no, for sure. This was good. I appreciate you guys having me on. We do have some things in the works, so stay tuned. We're going to be launching a brand new website in the coming weeks, which is going to have, all the same data and tools, but just a brand new design, a better UI, and hopefully a better overall experience, for our users and subscribers. So otherwise, yeah, just I would encourage everyone who hasn't checked out FanShare to dig in. We have FanShare Pro, obviously, but there's a lot of good free content on there as well. One thing I still enjoy doing every week is just kind of diving into the player tags, clicking on the name, going to the player profile page, and just trying to gauge, the conversation, checking out a couple blogs, seeing what podcasts mention certain guys and what the context is. So, a lot of information there. So hopefully your followers are getting some value out of it.
Absolutely. From what I heard, they definitely are. We hear from probably Tuesday afternoon, trying to dig through that, and then Wednesday morning, I think the ownership start coming out, and it's just nonstop. So,
yeah,
man, we appreciate all the work you're doing. We'll definitely be in touch, and we'll have to have you come back on sometime. But yeah, thank you so much, Andrew.
Okay, thanks, Drew.
All right, we'll talk to you later. Good luck this week.
Yeah, you too.
All righty. See ya.
See ya.
All right, guys. Let's see if I can get Jacob in here real quick. Hopefully that was somewhat... We'll go back to the ownerships, and we'll start cycling through some. I know y'all are interested in some more. But let's see if I can grab him real fast. Sorry for the technical, oh, man. Hey, Jake. Give me just a second to pull you into the old video box. Let's see what size you are. We'll compare your size to Andrew's size. The video size. No, that was good. I know they probably can't hear you.
Am I in?
Hey, you're in now. You are in.
Sweet.
So, yeah, man, I'll hop back to the FanShare stuff. We'll go through our last bit of the show, talking through that, and then obviously we got some giveaways. But yeah, that was pretty interesting. I really don't even know what to do with the information as far as last year, the top 15, no one was owned higher than 15%.
Yeah, no, that's
it's crazy, right?
pretty unbelievable, actually. Yeah,
I don't know how that even happens.
You would think that.
So yeah, if you just monitor chat for a little bit, we'll walk through the last bit, talking through some ownerships, and see if there's any that stand out. And like I said, Leishman or Tiger was one. He's at 17.5%. So the fade looks even better if he's really going to be that high. Mm-hmm. I honestly felt like if I was going to not play him, he was still going to be lower owned. I just didn't want to play him. But like at 17%, I would almost come off of him at that price or at that projected ownership. And that's just me. I wouldn't. It's a small enough field as Tiger Woods, but in a few lineups, he's not going to be in my list. Tyrell Hatton, we see bar down, talking about 13.5%. Yeah, I'm not playing Hatton, and the ownership.
And there was some
awful,
concern
but
about a potential injury too.
Yeah, I can't confirm that. It was something from a couple weeks ago. He mentioned he was having a cortisone shot in his wrist. So I don't know.
There was something on chat. Somebody mentioning about a shoulder. He was nursing a shoulder this week.
Jeez. Bar down. I'll try to scroll up the chat a little bit. I see Bubba in there. Bar down said, you said you moved off Beho, JK Ray to who? Who'd you move off Beho to?
I actually moved off him down. I really gained some interest back in Cam Smith. I know that he.
What's he at?
Yeah, I played him. He's at 7,400.
He's 16% right now. That's kind of.
Oh wow!
I mean, he's definitely cheap, but I didn't think he'd be that.
Yeah, no, I didn't think he would be that pricey. If you don't mind swallowing the 16%, he performs better on POA. He's a good putter. Prior to the finish last week, he had some strong finishes at Farmers. I think he backdoored the top 10, and he is from South Africa, where they have the same fairways and Kikuyu and POA. So he has been quoted as saying that that surface is familiar to him. It's what he grew up on. So certainly interesting. The 16% ownership concerns me just a little bit. I might even pivot further. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of numbers here that I wouldn't have suspected even in this 7 range.
I think it's tough. I think it's really tough. I mean, obviously FanShare and Andrew do a great job with this because they've been pretty spot on the last couple weeks and really all last year. But like in a smaller field like this, it doesn't take much to see someone just completely fall off the radar. Like I haven't heard a ton of chatter on Cam Smith. Like just looking at his tags, he's down 6 from last week's tournament. Yeah. And his percent ownership is about what it was last week. He's $1,000 cheaper. So like, I really don't have a problem with Cam Smith. I mean, he struck the ball pretty well last week with his irons. It's just driver he didn't do so well. So, like I said on the podcast, I think this is more of an iron golf course focus than tee shots so much. I think obviously getting the ball in play is key anywhere, but I think you'll see more guys play well if they hit their irons than guys that drive it well. If they're hitting their irons bad, they're not going to score. So I really don't mind Cam at 16%. I think he's cheap enough and almost deserves that high of ownership. Yeah. I'm not planning to play him yet, but I might actually play him.
Okay.
Bubba, I know they just pulled that up. C. Ferreter, Red, Poulter, or Sergio. I would just go Sergio there. And I mean, Poulter hasn't played. We haven't seen him in a while, but Sergio after last week, I still like Sergio quite a bit. I'll just leave it at that. I think he's a class above that range, so I'm going to count on his ball striking that he's had from the European Tour and see if he can make some putts on La Poa. And even if he doesn't make a ton of putts, it should at least negate some guy running away with it. So I like Sergio.
Yeah. Papa Wolf says, any love for Fitzy? Ben liked him. I'm curious to see what his ownership is. I think I played him last week or the week before. I've always kind of liked Fitzpatrick. He really known as a good putter. He is much more hyped up across the pond, obviously, but it's hard to debate against his Crayons form, right?
That was
past 2 years he's won that event.
Exactly. It was because he had elevation narrative, which I don't blame him for. But I'm trying to pull him up right now just to get an idea. I wasn't planning to play Matthew Fitzpatrick. And I really don't think I have any knocks on him. I don't know if I mentioned that on the podcast. Let me see. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell where he's at in his game. So I don't plan to play him. I will say his POA splits are pretty good for what it's worth, but he's at a weird price range there, in my opinion. So who asked that?
Papa Wolf.
Yeah, I have interest in him, man, but I don't know if I'm gonna pull the trigger on Fitzpatrick. And he's not that highly owned, which sounds like backwards, but like if he was like 11%, I might give it a little more attention to see if I'm missing something. But at 6%, and he could go down, I guess I'll just ride it out in a single entry without him.
Yeah.
Fleet God, Fleet God, Fleet Goat, Fleet God, either one.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, he's gonna be up there, 22.5%.
Yeah, 22.
That doesn't like shock me, to be honest.
Yeah.
Hideki, yeah, fits his English Adam Hadwin pretty much, man. Sharma ownership, I think I pulled that up, but I'll pull it up again if I missed that one. But yeah, I mean, I feel like the ownership is a good tool as far as my lineup construction. I try to build it without ownership first, or at least I get my pool together, and then I roll into the ownership stuff and just see where like my lineups fall.
Yeah.
You know, like if I can build 4 or 5 guys out of 6, and I'm on my last one within, you know, let's just say I'm like between 7,400 or I have 7,800 left, I can kind of see where I can pivot to or go to. Sharma at 8%. He's higher than Fitz, which is, I know he's cheaper, but still pretty crazy.
Yeah.
CR Golfer Xander is at 12%. You love to see it. You just love to see a 12% Xander win.
Yeah, sign me up.
Knox and Answer. Oh man, Knox. I haven't given enough respect to Knox this week. He's at 6.5%. He's been playing pretty solid.
Yeah, I like Knox a lot, actually.
Yeah.
You want to do some giveaways?
Yeah, man, we'll do some giveaways. Knox 6.5. And then the last one down here, we'll do Answer. 5% Answer. Got a lot of tags from last week, but I think it's because of the Mexico thing.
Yeah.
All right, guys. If you have any more, I'll just keep eyeballing in there. Let's shout out to Chris Ferreter. He's in the chat. I'm on X in every lineup. I'm on X in at least one, but I'm only making a handful of main. So standard green, we got that one again. Kudos. Thanks, man. He made a special, I don't know what you call this, like an apple green. It's great. And then we got a little Tiger Woods red fantasy golf bag. So we'll mix that into the pot as far as guys getting new shirts. Smug Smuggler, we're about to tell you about how to enter this giveaway. We're going to spin the wheel. We'll see what comes up. We will, yeah, it's kind of Masters Green, JMO. I'll spin the wheel. I'll do that right now, actually. We'll see what comes up, and I'll give you a keyword to throw in the chat, and the terrible chat bot that everyone hates is going to tell us who wins. There we go. There we go. FGB t-shirt. All right, so we'll do a keyword here. Let's see. Keyword is going to be Montezuma. That's how you spell it, in case you're wondering. So type Montezuma in. I'll give you guys about 20 seconds, and I'll go and hit the old bot selector thing button, and we'll see who wins something.
Montezuma.
Montezuma, what a word. Yeah, poor, so in the middle of Andrew coming on, H3 Buddha donated $22.22. So thanks to Mike again for the donation. We appreciate it, man. He also commented, which now I didn't realize the voice comes out to my ears. It doesn't come out to the chat or to like the video. I'll pull up Beauregard, JMO. And all it said was la-di-da-di-da-di-da-di-da-di-da-di-da-di-da-di for like 20 seconds while I'm trying to listen to him. Oh, man. JMO glitched it. got?
That's the ticket. You just got to say Beauregard.
Oh, that's what he was asking. Beauregard. All right. Congrats, JMO. We'll do one more. Well, do two more, actually. It picks. You figured something out, man.
Oh, you should make the next one Chapultepec.
Thought about it. I don't have a pin. Golf polo.
I hadn't given away one of those in a while.
JMO wins a shirt. All right. Keyword. Man, guys. This whole thing. Keyword's going to be... We'll do, just do Brooks. I was going to do thong, but I figured the bot would probably like, everyone's typing thong in here. Might be the wrong type of live stream.
Probably boot the whole chat.
Yeah, it'd boot everybody. And we'd get banned forever. Yeah. All right, Brooks for the FGB polo.
Oh, wow.
All right, 5 seconds. We'll roll it. We'll spin it one more time, and we'll get you guys out of here. Make some lineups. Dentriment. Dentriment. Congrats, man. Dentriment. If you can message me on Twitter, I'll get your size and your address, and we'll strip that out. We'll do one more real quick. H3 Buddha must have been drinking today. FGB hats. We'll do a hat. Real easy. All we'll do is... Any big news this last week? Not really, right?
No, I don't think so.
I don't know why, but Kendrick. Kendrick's the keyword.
Kendrick. Have you been listening to some Kendrick Lamar lately?
Yeah, I don't know why I thought of Kendrick Lamar. Imagine a golfer named Kendrick. That'd be cool. I don't know why, but... Oh, Boone Cree. That's going to Jacob. Forgot about that one. I'll get with
What?
Jacob. Boone Cree's like, still haven't got my shirt. And I was like, crap, I forgot to send it to you.
Oh, yeah.
That's my bad. All right, 5 seconds. No. Mindy Mark, you're not going to win this one, buddy.
What, did he win another one?
Yeah, he's not winning this one. He already won one. And a hat. Spin it one more time. That one, forget that one. Sorry. OGFGB t-shirt. All right. This keyword is Lamar. We got Kendrick in there, Lamar. Mindy Mark, you know what you're doing, man. You're doing something with the bot. You've won what'd you win, a wedge, a shirt, a polo, a hat? At least Buddha won a hybrid and donated it back, basically. I know, he didn't even donate. Mike, what the heck? All right, 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1. You haven't got a polo, Mark? A complex kid. OGF.
Oh, this is his first time at the stream, he said at the very beginning.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, congrats. Thanks for joining. A complex kid. Yeah, Higgins, thank you so much, man. For those of you that didn't win, I am so sorry. Complex Kid, just message me on Twitter, and I'll figure out your size and address. But, yeah, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to the Fantasy Golf Bag live stream. For Jacob, JKRaySU, you can find him on Twitter. I'm Red Kid Cheek. Good luck this week in all your contests. Of course, we'll be around all weekend. You can message us on Twitter. You can find us at fantasygolfbag.com. Next week, Fantasy Golf Bag podcast will drop on Tuesday. We'll be ready for the Florida Swing. And as always, the showdown stuff will be live starting tomorrow morning as soon as the first tee shots hit. So check back, fantasygolfbag.com. Good luck this week, guys. Have fun with your lineups. Good luck with your construction. We'll see you next week. See you guys.
See ya.